What is good, everybody? Welcome into Daily Betslip for Wednesday, July 6th. Ben Heisler, Donnavan Smoot with you. Good to be back after about a week or so out in the beautiful weather of the Canadian Rockies. Donovan, I turned off Twitter for I don't know, maybe 5, 6 days. I really tried to have that moment to just mentally refresh. And all of a sudden, I turned it on. Kevin Durant's trying to get traded. USC and UCLA are now in the Big Ten, so my dreams of Indiana eventually going to a Rose Bowl are just completely complete. Like I feel like as a sports fan and as a betting fan, I just picked a terrible time to try to just take a woosah moment for a few days. A lot's happened in the last week and a half.
I know. Listen, I think that kind of happens and I don't know how it happens like this for everybody, but I feel like every time anybody says, "Okay, I'm gonna disconnect," that's when everything starts to get crazy. So you definitely
Yes.
it's definitely something that happens to absolutely everybody.
So I'm trying to get caught up. Obviously, a lot of you guys that are hanging out with us today, if there's anything else that I missed, please let us know. But we're going to try and focus on the today part here for Daily Betslip. We got a lot of fun stuff over the course of today's show. Bad beat of the day from last night's action is something that just was an absolutely painstaking moment for anybody on and under. We'll get to that coming up in about a minute or so. Donovan and I have our best bets of the night featuring Major League Baseball, as well as a very intriguing WNBA slate. Get to that coming up in about 5 minutes from now. We're taking a look with the Summer League starting up already in the Salt Lake League. You got the Las Vegas League coming up tomorrow. We're going to give you our top 3 picks for Summer League MVP. Donovan's got his list. I have my top 3. We're going to go through them together, see where we agree and where we disagree as we still wait for a lot of those odds to come out. And, of course, our game of the night between the Tampa Bay Rays and the Boston Red Sox. Good matchup out in the AL East that I'm looking forward to as well. But Donovan, starting with the bad beat of the night, got to go out to last night. You have Seattle and San Diego. Mariners up 4-2. Now the total was set at 7.5 for this one. And then I don't know if you got a chance to see the replay as to how the Mariners ended up winning this game by the score of 6-2, going past the over of 7.5. JP Crawford was at the plate, lefty versus lefty matchup. And Trent Grisham was playing so far in and so far to the left side of the field. He looked like he was basically like the shortstop's helper. I don't know what he was doing where he was so far in that the ball sailed over his head. He still had a chance to make a play on it. In fact, if he's standing in a normal, even shallow center field spot, he probably comes up with it. Instead, it goes to the wall. 2-run score, and the Mariners end up winning. So for anybody on the under 7.5 out in San Diego, just an absolutely killer beat with some terrible positioning by one Trent Grisham in San Diego last night. Just killer.
Unders are tough, man, and like you and I, we've seen it a whole bunch with the WNBA. It's just
Yes.
so hard. Like once you get to in baseball, you get to those last couple outs, and any other sport, you like the time starts winding down. It feels like everything starts moving slower and slower and slower. And so, listen, if you had the under, that's a tough play. That's a tough play.
What's crazy too, and I think part of the reason that so many folks just don't like to bet on unders is they see the bad beats. The beats almost always are either in the form of like a large favorite finding a way to blow it late, right, with a big point spread, or in this case in baseball, some jamoke gives up a run when they're not supposed to. And then next thing you know, the floodgates open. And what was supposed to be an easy under in a 3-2 game all of a sudden turns into a 6-2 game. And the 7.5 total just breaks 3. Even though unders will typically hit the majority of the time, I think for casual bettors, they see these bad beats and they're like, all right, not interested, not going to do this again. I'm not going to fall for this trick one more time.
Exactly. No, I think that's 100% true. And also, it's just not as fun. Like even when you have an over and you get to that point in the game where like nothing, like that it's not going to hit, you can still trick yourself and have like that delusion of, okay, well, if this happens and this happens and this happens, we're still okay. And
Right.
just like that part of still being able to hold out hope, that part is what's very intriguing about the over.
No doubt. And I think we're going to possibly get into a possibility of a couple of those on our best bet section. So let's dive right in. You're taking a look at an MLB prop tonight, which I also have as well. And then we are focused on the 2 evening games in the WNBA tonight. So let's start with Major League Baseball. You're looking to the diamond tonight. Tell me which is your favorite MLB prop bet of the night as we kick things off with our best bets.
Yeah, I'm going. I'm gonna back the Yankees tonight. They lost last night against the Pirates, but I'm taking Luis Severino over 6.5 strikeouts, -105. And so for Severino, I faded him in his last start against the Astros just because I thought that, the Yankees over like the last 5 years, they've always had trouble with the Astros, and that was just a good matchup to kind of take the under on that. But if you take that out, he's cleared this line in 4 of his last 5 starts. He's normally, above this line and around this line. And so I think that we're getting a little bit of value on it because of his poor start against the Astros, right? He only had four strikeouts in that game. But Severino is a guy who he's come back from a lot of injuries. He's shown up very, very big time for the Yankees this year. And in his last 5 starts, just kind of the last start against the Astros, he's had 7 strikeouts, 9 strikeouts, and then back-to-back 10 strikeout games. So I think he returns to form against the Pirates, who are one of the worst teams in baseball in strikeout rate. They are the second worst team in strikeout rate. So you put that with the pitcher, looking for a bounce back game, and I really like this prop.
Yeah, I think 6.5 is a reasonable number. And even just a couple weeks ago, I don't know if they're still the worst strikeout team in the majors. I know that they were. And at one point, they were on a stretch where they were striking out more than 30% of the time. Actually went and surpassed a team like Atlanta, who had been in the lead through the bulk of the season. Right now, I'm loading it up right now. So the Pittsburgh Pirates, as far as strikeout rate goes, they are number 2 in all of baseball. They strike out over 25% of the time. That's the second highest mark in all of Major League Baseball. We've talked about Atlanta. They've come down a bit to 24.8. But listen, Severino is a guy that he'll rack up strikeouts, and Pittsburgh doesn't put the ball in play a lot. They don't have a lot of power. I think this is an ideal time, especially with Severino riding hot. So I like that play quite a bit.
Yeah.
So that's
where you going tonight?
Okay. So on the subject of strikeouts, I think it's only fair that we go ahead and take a team and fade them, because the only team ahead of the Pittsburgh Pirates in strikeouts are the Los Angeles Angels. They're abysmal right now with their strikeouts. They're striking out, Donnavan, 26.3% of the time. Like, I know that they still can drive the ball, and they have Trout and Ohtani and Tyler Ward and a couple other guys that can mash a little bit, but they are not doing a good job of putting the ball in play. And they go up against Trevor Rogers tonight, who admittedly has not had a great year for Miami. But one aspect of his game that is positive is that he has a solid strikeout per 9. He's averaging 8.21 strikeouts. The walks right now are a little bit high, but he's also starting to show signs of getting out of it a little bit. Last few games for Rodgers have been better. We've also noticed that he's somebody that has a very high ERA, but his fielder independent pitching is noticeably lower by almost a full run. And this is also a guy that the books have moved their line almost everywhere. It opened at 4.5. There's still some books, Donnavan, you can get it at 4.5, but you're basically paying -200 odds to get there. What I like about Win in this particular situation is that they have it, instead of moving it from 4.5 to 5.5, they just moved it up to 5, and you can get it at -125 tonight. So every other book has adjusted. Rather than having to pay considerable tax to try and get it up to another point where he may not reach it, you're betting on him getting to 5 anyway. So I like the number that Win has set it at. To me, this feels like a value proposition against the worst strikeout team in the league. And all he has to get to is 5, which he's done in 2 of his last 3 starts. So even though Rodgers has had an up and down year, he has pitched better in his last couple of starts. And I think he can get there again tonight.
Yeah, this is a play that I listen. If it wasn't for if it wasn't your best bet, it probably would have been mine. Fading the Angels has been something that has been a very consistent strategy of mine, and it's worked out very well. I did it. I did it last night. I faded them against the Marlins. With especially with Sandy Alcantara starting last night, and he had double digit strikeouts. So anytime that you can get any pitcher, no matter how inconsistent or how much of a strikeout artist they are. If they're playing the
Yeah.
Angels, you have to fade them. So I like this prop a lot.
Yeah, especially now. We did it in the early portion of the season with the Braves. The Pirates are another team that you can absolutely do it against, and you can even look at sites like Fangraphs that allow you to sort of separate, how bad these teams are against right-handed pitchers, whether or not they struggle in day games or night games. You can really find out a lot of these different matchups, and both of these matchups for Luis Severino against the Pirates, as well as Trevor Rogers against the Angels, all of them come up extremely favorable for both of these guys to hit their strikeout props. So those are the two MLB plays that we have on the board today. But let's dive into the WNBA slate, Donovan, because there's a couple really intriguing games on the board tonight. We're looking at the Washington Mystics and the Atlanta Dreams. So we'll start with that game because we each have a play on it. Right now, total for that one is Mystics is a 5.5-point favorite on the road in Atlanta. The total also sitting anywhere between 156 and 157. So I think you're looking to a side for this game based off of our best bets article that you can find over at BetSided a little bit earlier today. So go ahead and let me know from a WNBA perspective where you're looking for that game.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Mystics -5.5. You and I mentioned it earlier. You and I have taken a lot of unders this year, and we've gotten burned a lot. And so these two teams are teams that kind of play towards the under a lot. But I think I like Washington in the spot because I think that they're going to be able to control the game a little bit more. And so Washington has the second best defensive rating in the league. But they also play at the slowest pace in the league. I think that those two things they're going to be able to kind of suffocate Atlanta's offense, which is already the worst in the league in terms of offensive rating. Right, they have an offensive rating of 91.9. And Atlanta's defense has slipped, right? Because for much of the year, the Dream had the top defense in the league. They dropped down to third. So
Yeah.
the strength of Atlanta is starting to diminish right now. I think Washington is going to be able to get in there and win 6 points in a really like close rock fight. It's going to be a little tough, but I still like the offensive weapons that Washington is able to deploy more than what Atlanta is able to do on defense.
It almost kind of seems that Atlanta has shifted their identity a little bit. Like the first month and a half of the season, they were going to slow you down. They were going to play incredibly aggressive on defense. They played fast, but they didn't really hit a lot of their buckets. And now it seems like they're playing fast, but the buckets are going in. And as a result of it, like a lot of really strong offensive teams, sometimes the defense tends to suffer when you want to play a little bit more fast and a little bit more quickly. Do you feel like Atlanta's kind of changing the way that they've played, at least over the last 7, 8 games?
For sure. You look at their pace numbers, they're not third in the league in pace. And so they're doing exactly what you're talking about. They're getting up and down the floor, which kind of leads into what your best bet for the night on this one.
No doubt. Yeah. Thank you for teeing me up for that one. I
I'm
do like
lobbing
the
it
over
up.
between the yeah. That's a strong teammate, right? Little give and go. I like the over at 156, and I mentioned in our article today that a few sports books still had it available. Most of it have it right now at around 156 and a half or 157, but there's still a few. If you search for it, if you shop around, you can find it there. I know that Atlanta has played better over their last couple games. Two big wins, by the way, against New York and also against Seattle. And like we've talked about, their evolution into becoming a more offensive oriented team and actually becoming more efficient, right? We talked about their ability to want to push pace, but they were one of a bottom 3 WNBA team for most of the season in efficiency. We're starting to see that number start to go right back up. But you mentioned that adaptation. So the Dream in their first, and this is from Jim Turvey, and I want to shout him out because he had this great stat. So over their last 9 games, Atlanta has given up an average of 87.3 points per game. In their first 12 games, they only gave up 73.1 points per game. So that's a difference of more than 14 points per game. But also, you've noticed their offensive efficiency and their offensive rating go up as well. Washington has their moments where they can't really score. Case in point was their last game on the road against Connecticut. It was 74-72 Donnavan in overtime. But in the previous 2 games, they had scored an average of just under 90 points. So with this type of matchup, I think they are going to be able to play more efficiently. They are going to be able to go with Atlanta's ability to push the pace. So I think it's going to be one of those games that, even though both teams are top 3 in defensive rating, you might look at yourself and say, well, I have to take the under. I think if you watch both of these teams recently, it's more indicative of them probably playing a little bit more faster paced, and I see the over clearing fairly easily tonight.
Yeah, listen, you see this a lot of times in these games that, it's like the second or third matchup of the season, and these teams, the more you go on, the more you start to adjust. And I think that with Atlanta and with Washington, like you said, they're gonna finally figure out how to kind of play against each other. And Atlanta is trying to figure out a way to get these wins, right? They're 10 and 11 right now, still under 500, trying to get themselves in a solid position for the playoff run, especially with the All-Star break coming up. So I think this is a really good opportunity for Atlanta to test kind of that new style of this
Yeah.
up and down pace against a great defense like Washington.
No doubt. And they've won 2 in a row. So they're feeling a little bit more confident heading into tonight as well. I also see that our guy Cody is waiting with his best bet of the night. We'll get to his coming up after our final best bet, which is the other game in the WNBA between the New York Liberty and the Las Vegas Aces. Aces are in a bit of a funk. They're really starting to struggle down the final stretch heading into the All-Star break. But there is something at stake here, which I'll dive into just a little bit. Donnavan, you might have a play on this as well. So Aces right now are 11-point favorites at home against the Liberty, who have had a terrific month of June. Lost a couple games to start July, but overall, this is a very different team that's heading into Las Vegas tonight compared to the team that we saw at the beginning of the season. So how do you handicap tonight? Aces is double-digit favorite at home, but they're really struggling right now.
Yeah, I haven't really been able to figure out the Liberty all season long. They've kind of been a tough team for me to handicap. And even with Las Vegas, I feel like there's been a couple times where you think that they have a layup and they don't, and they go out and they kind of blow things. They've had a couple of bad moments this year. But I'm gonna take the under in this game, and the total's at 169, and I think that this is going to be a spot where Las Vegas's offense might struggle a little bit, and New York's offense, even though that they've played better over the last few weeks, it's still going to be hard to get into a shootout, right? Las Vegas is going to push probably somewhere between 80 and 90 points. If they get to 100, I think that for them, to either cover by 11, you're gonna need New York to still like be competent in that range. I'm not sure if they do that. Their defense is average in the league if we're talking about defensive rating.
Yeah.
And so when I look at the under, and I look at both of these teams, the Liberty hit the under more often than not. They're 9 and 11 against the over this year, and then Las Vegas in their last 5 games, they're 1-2 against the over, and so I'm not sure. 169 just feels like a really big number for an Aces team that you said has been struggling a little bit, and a Liberty team that doesn't necessarily have the most firepower in the league.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating matchup because I think what you've noticed about the Aces is that they are a very good team. They've only had one time all season where they've lost 2 games in a row, and I believe that time when it happened, it was a 1-point loss to Washington. And again, that's one of the better defensive teams. They lost in overtime 87-86. So this is a team that makes the adjustments when they come out and play well. And remember, they beat Minnesota, who's right now one of the hottest teams in the league, 91-85 back on Friday. And then on Sunday, I don't know what happened, but they lost. That was their worst loss of the season. Got absolutely blown out. Lost by 31 points on the road against the Lynx. So they're going to have to make a statement, I think, tonight. And yes, the Liberty have been playing better, but I do think you're going to see a better defensive effort tonight from the Aces. And the other issue for the Liberty is that they take a ton of threes. And if you're going to see an Aces team that's locked in and guarding the 3-point line, I think this one could be over really soon. And that's part of the reason that I'm taking the Aces. I was able to get them at minus 11. They're mostly sitting around minus 11 and a half. But I think either of those numbers is perfectly reasonable tonight at home against the Liberty. New York's dealing with multiple injuries tonight. The Aces have everybody that is healthy, good to go in their rotation. The other component that I think we need to consider is the Commissioner's Cup. And for anybody that's unfamiliar with it, basically, whatever team, it's between the Aces and the Sky for the best record in the first half of the WNBA season. If the Aces lose tonight, Chicago gets the Commissioner's Cup. That's $500,000, around 30 grand to every player on the team. And in the WNBA, that's sizable money because a lot of these players are not just playing in the WNBA, they're playing elsewhere over other parts of the season. And right now, Chicago and the Aces are tied, but Chicago would win in point differential, which is 12. The spread in this game is 11 and a half. So I believe the Aces are going to make a statement, whereas if you're the Liberty, you're trying to get healthy. You can feel good about your turnaround so far, headed towards the end of the first half. Even if you get blown out tonight, you can know that your team has made sizable improvements. You're back in the playoff race. I just feel like this is the Aces' night, and I know that they've had their inconsistencies and they're tired too, Donnavan, but knowing what's at stake, knowing the amount of money that's on the line in the Commissioner's Cup, I think they're going to blow out the Liberty tonight. I don't think this one's going to be particularly close.
Yeah. Listen, that's really interesting because the last 10 games for the Aces have been very weird, especially if we're talking about them against the spread. They're 2-8 against the spread in their last 10 games.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why I was kind of staying away from the spread, is because I don't know. Like, you on paper and statistically, obviously the Aces are insanely better than the Liberty. But you look at that against the spread record, and you're just like, oh, I don't know. You have a double-digit spread. I'm not sure if they're gonna come to play, and they haven't done so in the last month. So that's the only thing that makes me a little bit worried about that pick.
I get it. I mean, even looking at their wins, it was a 6-point win against Minnesota. You know, at that point they only had 6 wins on the season, I believe, maybe even 5. They went on the road at Los Angeles, one of the worst teams in the league. They only win that game by 6 points. And then they barely win against Minnesota by 1. And I think back to that game that somehow they were able to cover against Dallas a little bit while ago too. You're right. Like, they've let big leads slip away. But I think there's more at stake for them, especially with the Commissioner's Cup. Like, I think the Aces have been okay to play really well in the first half, third quarter, and then just let teams kind of chip away once the game is out of reach. I don't think you'll see that tonight because I think they understand how big of a difference point differential will be, knowing that they need to get back and try and clear as many points as they can, because Chicago on a back-to-back loses to Indiana tomorrow night, and they've already lost a game to Indiana on the road. I don't think they'll lose again, but the point differential is going to be huge here. And so I expect the Aces to come out and just dominate the Liberty from start to finish. But those are our best bets. Before we get into our recap, our guy Cody checked in with one of his favorite MLB bets of the night. In fact, I think he actually has 2 on the board, and always love when Cody checks in with us. Freddie Freeman, who I believe is Peter Dewey's pick for our Daily Dinger tonight. And by the way, the team's been hot. We had 4 selections on Monday and Tuesday. 3 of them have gone yard. So we'll see how we're doing the rest of the day. But Daily Dinger right now for BetSided is absolute fire right now. So Cody's going with Freddie Freeman over 0.5 doubles at plus 320 and over at least to get 1 home run at plus 425. He's 13 for 31 with 4 doubles and 4 home runs against Arena, 19th in batting average and OPS this season. Hard to argue. I mean, it's tough, Donnavan, to get hits in this league. It's tough to get home runs in this league, but when you're as locked in as you are, and Freeman's had himself a really strong run over the last month or so, hard to argue. And those are really nice numbers to try and chase after tonight.
Yeah, listen, I hope Freddie Freeman is locked in. You heard about the story, with his contract and everything that's going on with him in Los Angeles. But listen, he and the entire Dodgers squad has looked great this season. So yeah, I'm down with the Freddie Freeman prop tonight.
Awesome. So good stuff from Cody. Appreciate him as always checking in with us on the show. Let's take a recap and take a look at where Donovan and I are betting on the board for tonight over at BetSided. You've written up all these different plays. You can check them out on the site as well. Donovan's going with Luis Severino over 6.5 strikeouts for the Yankees fireballer. He's also going with the Mystics at -5.5 on the road against Atlanta, and the under between the New York Liberty and the Las Vegas Aces. I'm going 5 for Trevor Rogers on his strikeout prop tonight, -125. It started up at 4.5. A lot of places now have it at 5.5, but I think you get the best number at win tonight at 5 -125. Love the over between the Mystics and the Dream. The Dream's defense, again, just not that defensive tenacious team that we saw in the early portion of the season. And I like the Aces chasing after that cash in the Commissioner's Cup, -11 tonight against the New York Liberty. But if your book has it at 11.5, I would go ahead and bet it up at that point. So let's transition, Donovan, because the NBA Summer League is officially underway. You got the California League that was going on. We saw Chet Holmgren make his debut out in the Salt Lake League. And then, of course, the Vegas League, which is where the bulk of these teams come in, is getting going on Thursday. And it's been fun to watch the Summer League really start to pick up in popularity. It's on my list of places to eventually get out to because you really get a chance. It's the first time to see a lot of these rookies in some feature of NBA action. It's not the preseason. And you get a chance to have them be featured, right? A lot of these guys aren't going to be the featured guys on their team, but a lot of these rookies, especially some of the middle tier guys, the high upside draft picks, these general managers and these front offices want to see what they can do against lesser competition. And you're going to see some pretty solid competition, I would say, in the Summer League. And there's a lot of notable guys that there are going to attract interest. We already saw it from Chet Holmgren, and we'll see whether or not he makes our list or not. Just absolutely dominant in his Summer League debut. But let's go ahead. We're going to go rapid fire back and forth. I want you to tell me the number one guy that you were looking at for MVP, and then we'll work our way down our list, give you our top 3 picks for Summer League MVP in the NBA this year. So who is that number one guy for you?
For me, it's Jaden Ivey. Jaden Ivey is a guy he's an explosive guard who can score kind of at ease. I feel like everybody knew everybody knew who 1, 2, and 3 were going to be in the draft, but it also felt like everybody wanted like Jaden Ivey to be in the best situation. He seems like one of the most likable guys, and the fact that he went to Detroit and everybody was happy that he didn't end up in Sacramento because they knew that his career actually has a chance now.
That's right.
That I think shows just how much everybody believes in Jaden Ivey and his potential. But I think that he's super explosive. He's a really good passer. You were able to see what he was capable of doing at Purdue, and especially in the tournament going up against a lot of really good defenses. Jaden Ivey is going to be really, really electric in the Summer League. So he's my number one pick.
So Ivey is a great pick, and he's actually on my list as well. He's not number one. And I'll tell you too, and I don't know, I think you feel the same way. I think you and I see the world from this perspective. Like, he went to Purdue, I went to Indiana. I'm supposed to hate Jaden Ivey, but A, I'm kind of too old for that stuff at this point. But B, like, to me, I kind of think he's impossible to root against. Like, there's so much intrigue to his game, and I'm right there with you. Like, it felt like another thing that Sacramento had the perfect opportunity to snatch up, but they blew it again in the draft for Luka. They ended up going with Marvin Bagley. This happened to the Kings multiple times. So I like Keegan Murray a lot, but I think Jaden Ivey has a chance to be special. So I'll get to him in just a little bit. But my number one guy is the guy that we already saw. Like, I have a sample now to be able to take from Chet Holmgren with Oklahoma City. Started off the Salt Lake City Summer League, had 23 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 6 blocks. The 6 blocks, I think, was a record in summer
Yeah.
league. And if it's not, he said in his post-game interview that he is coming back for the record. So this is someone that fills up all parts of the stat sheet. You saw some terrific passes, really good vision. The defensive presence was there. Now he's going to get, like, when he starts playing up against like Joel Embiid, he's going to get bodied inside and he's going to have to put on weight. But you saw the vision of what this guy could be. And again, I think Oklahoma City wants to feature that. They want to get him a ton of confidence and let him be the lead guy and play all over the court. And when you can do that, I think you put yourself in a really good spot where this is a Thunder team that needs to showcase their talent. They need to get some feeling of good vibes heading into the season. I think they want Holmgren feeling great. And I think he's going to be one of those guys, especially now, who puts himself in a really good spot because people have been able to actually see what he was able to do.
Yeah, I don't hate the pick. My one concern is that I don't think he's going to play the whole summer league. I think that he's already been so dominant, and him and Josh Giddey are both out there.
Yeah.
They're not Josh Giddey's for sure not playing all of summer league, and Holmgren, if he comes out and he's putting up 23.7 rebounds, 6 blocks every game, they're shutting him down by the second game because they're going to say, okay, we've seen what we needed to see. We're going to keep you healthy because you're clearly, a building piece for the future, and we want you healthy for the regular season. So I think that he's fantastic. I think that he, looked amazing in his first game. I just don't think he's going to be out on the floor. And so that's the only reason why he's not on my list right now.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And maybe it's part of the consideration for if you're not necessarily looking for guys to consider, maybe don't just focus on the rookies, focus on the guys that really need to prove something as you start to look at all the different candidates for Summer League MVP. I see a note from Bambezel. He says, do you think the Red Sox pull it off? We will get to that coming up in about, I'd say about 3-4 minutes. Heading into our game of the night. So absolutely, we're talking Rays and Red Sox for tonight. As far as our betting plays, of course, we'll hear from you guys as well. Make our final pick based off of what the community votes on. So stick around, Bambezel. We will get to that coming up in about 3-4 minutes or so. All right, so number 1 on your list, Jaden Ivey. Number 1 on my list, Chet Holmgren. Who's number 2 for you?
Number 2 is Jabari Smith Jr. From the Houston Rockets. And I know that the logic might be a little, hypocritical with Chet being number 2 and him being number 3, but I think that he's going to come in and he's going to have a chip on his shoulder. We heard for a majority of the time that he was going to be the number 1 pick, and we get to draft day and you have all of the you have the Woj bomb early in the morning and the odd shift, and then Woj comes back later and actually says, "Oh, my bad." And now Jabari, instead of being the number 1 overall pick to Orlando, he's the number 3 overall pick to Houston, and he's a guy who at 6'10" can do so much offensively, and the Summer League is really just glorified pickup. And so you're going to have to be able to score and kind of get things on your own. You're not going to have a lot of time to practice with your teammates. But I think that Jabari is in a really good position because the Rockets roster is actually really good. They have Jabari Smith Jr., they have Ty Washington, they have Josh Christopher, who played in the league last year. They have several guys who played NBA basketball last year. They have players who played in the G League last year. So I think they have a well-rounded squad and maybe a chance to make a run in Summer League. So I think Smith might be out on the court for a pretty long time.
You brought up Ty Washington. I'm excited to see those 2 SEC guys play together as opposed to playing against each other. And also, there's another SEC guy that's on the roster as well. That's Tari Eason. So you got some dudes that know each other, that are very comfortable and familiar with each other from their time playing up against each other in the SEC. And Smith makes a lot of sense. And again, you're right. Like, for somebody that was supposed to be the number 1 overall pick, he gets to go in with something to prove as opposed to having having sort of the target on him. Instead, he can come out and just play and ball out and really make a noticeable difference early on. So I like that play. I'm gonna go with Jaden Ivey because I like Detroit's chance to win the Summer League. They have more NBA players on their Summer League roster than pretty much every other team. I saw that Cade's going to be able to play a little bit in the Summer League, which is a bit surprising. Saddiq Bey, who I really like, is also going to be playing a little bit in the Summer League. So they're putting Ivy, their new point guard, And again, they'll change rotations with Cunningham as well, but they can play together in the backcourt. And I think the Pistons want to see it so that they can hit the ground running once preseason and training camp starts. Now, it's a bit risky. You're always dealing with potential injury, but you still have months before the start of the season. I think Ivy, again, at the position of a point guard, is going to have the most talent around him. And I think he's going to look to try and get those guys involved, and people are going to notice it. So we already talked about where he ranks among the best players, rookies in the league. They're setting him up for the most amount of success amongst all those rookies. So he's another guy that I think has a terrific chance to walk away with Summer League MVP.
Yeah, and honestly, I had no idea that Cunningham and Sadiq Bey were going to be out. They're just putting the
That's the
actual
report. Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, the Pistons have been so bad. They're just putting their actual roster. There's not really like that much of a difference. But no, listen. If those two guys are out there to help Ivy, especially with that transition, they're going to be really tough out. In the summer league, we've seen plenty of times where second year guys who are coming into the summer league, those first couple games look like they've made the leap. And so I think with Cade Cunningham, who's kind of already there, and Sadiq Bey, who's already there, that there's going to be a lot of talent for Jaden Ivey. So he might be a double guy pretty early on in these summer league games. So listen, I like that pick a lot.
Yeah, I also just looked at this. You have both of the Boeheim kids are going to be playing for the Pistons in the summer league. Killian Hayes is getting some run in the summer league. Charlie Moore was going to get some time in the summer. Like this is a stacked summer league roster that should just dominate everybody in front of them. But maybe we'll see how these minutes ultimately line up. All right, final guy on your list to consider for MVP. You've mentioned Jaden Ivey, number 1, Jabari Smith, number 2. Who's the number 3 guy? Who's the number 3 guy for you?
The last guy for me is going to be Keegan Murray. Keegan Murray, he had a Chet Holmgren performance just a couple days before, and he looked like a guy who has it. He looked like the complete package offensively, and the Kings, who have won or they've made deep runs into summer league. I'm not going to sit up here and act like summer league history matters, but the Kings have a little bit of something. And once you get into summer league, anything is possible for those first 3 games. And if you have a guy like Murray who shot very, very efficiently in his debut, like I think that there's a lot of value on Murray once those odds come out for him to be the summer league MVP, and for even the Kings to make a really deep run and maybe even win summer league. I mean, he played a game. He had 24.7 rebounds, 3 steals, 1 block shot in 30 minutes, right? 9 of 16 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3. His offensive game looked complete, and if he could translate that from California to Las Vegas, then listen, those are all-star level numbers. So he can definitely get this award.
Yeah, he's a professional bucket maker. That's why they drafted him. They wanted him for his offense because he's not going to play much defense. Maybe he can, but really good size, really smooth jump shot. It's easy to see why the Kings liked him. Again, we thought that there was a better player on the board in Ivy, but they felt very good with their guard spot, wanted to take who they thought was the best available player. So yeah, I think Murray makes a lot of sense. Professional bucket getter in this league. I'm going to go with a guy a little bit off the board, and that's EJ Liddell with the New Orleans Pelicans. I don't know about you, Donovan, but as somebody who watched a decent amount of Big Ten basketball, this was someone that was dominant and got better every year he was in college, and he fell all the way to 41. I don't know if it's because NBA teams considered him to be a bit of a tweener. Based off of his position. Maybe they thought he was a little bit undersized. I think he's a really good player, and I think they're getting a possible steal of the draft here. I saw it with the Bulls and Ayo Dosunmu, who was an elite player at the college level a season ago at Illinois. He goes to his hometown in Chicago, ends up putting together a really nice season. I think Liddell, again, if we're talking about guys that have something to prove, for someone that was supposed to be a pick in the teens of the NBA draft for the first round, now falling all the way to the teens of the second round, I think he's going to want to prove something, and I think New Orleans will give him every opportunity to do so.
Oh wow, I think Liddell. A lot of people thought that he was going to go in the middle of the first round. he has a lot of upside, and what we're seeing is a lot of these Big Ten guys are kind of NBA ready, and they're
Yeah.
gonna be able to step in to the league and be contributors on their team. And again, once you get into summer league and they're gonna be the guy, I think this is gonna be a really similar space for Liddell to step into. So I like that pick as well.
All right, so there you have it. Those are our top 3 plays in the NBA Summer League as far as consideraments for MVP. I'm going with Chet Holmgren, Jaden Ivey, and EJ Liddell. Donovan's going with Jaden Ivey, Jabari Smith, and Keegan Murray. Of course, it's probably going to be some player that none of us have ever heard of before. That's just how a lot of these situations work. But in case you're wondering, well, who's been the last Summer League MVP? Remember Cam Thomas with the Brooklyn Nets in 2021, Donovan?
Yep.
That's your Summer League MVP, the 27th pick out of LSU back in 2021. Before that, some guys that you absolutely have heard of: Davion Mitchell with Sacramento, Brandon Clark with the Memphis Grizzlies, and then 2 Lakers back-to-back in Josh Hart and Lonzo Ball. So it should be fun. Always exciting for Summer League, and we already have plenty of game previews and analysis for you guys to bet on as the Summer League tips off. Let's get into the game of the night. We got a really fun matchup in Major League Baseball tonight, a little AL East action between the Boston Celtics at home against the Tampa Bay Rays. Last time I checked, Donovan, I'm seeing the line right now at minus 120 for Boston with Brian Bello on the mound. He goes up against the Klubot, Corey Kluber. Tampa is plus 100 on the money line. Total was at 9.5. It has since dropped down to 9. And if you're looking on the run line, you can get Boston at minus 1.5 at plus 160. Tampa plus 1.5 at minus 190. Tell me who you like for this game. Are you going side? Are you going money line? Are you going total? What's your best bet for tonight's game?
I'm going money line. I'm picking an underdog. I'm picking the Rays to come in and to beat Boston. And you had a really good piece over at BetSided about just how hot underdogs have been this past month, and they've really been cooking. And the Rays are one of those teams. They've won 4 of their last 5. They've covered in those wins as well. And their offense has really started to pick up. If you looked at the Rays in May and June, they were around bottom 4, bottom 5 teams in the league in terms of batting average and OPS. The last 30 days, their batting average has risen to right around the middle of the league. They've gotten outside of the bottom third in OPS. And so in those 4 wins in the 4 of the last 5 games, they're averaging 8 runs per game. So again, the offense is really, really coming alive. And I think that Corey Kluber is going to be able to stay put together. He got rocked in his last outing. He only had 1 strikeout. Normally he goes about 5 1/3 to 6 innings. I think if Kluber can give them some decent length, the offense is going to be fine. And I think that the Rays are going to be in a really good spot tonight.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think you'll see a better pitching matchup than what the total indicates. And I got it at 9.5, and I've already seen it move down to 9. Some books already have it at 8.5. This is Brian Bello's debut, and I think part of the reason that there is that the line is a bit more discrepant towards Tampa, and I don't think a lot of people know who he is, but you should. He's 23. Joe Summers wrote our preview over at BetSided, gave a little bit of insight into him. He got a 99-mile-an-hour fastball, been someone who has dominated at every single aspect of the minor league level. And yeah, like Tampa's been able to put up some numbers, but he's second in strikeout rate in the minor leagues. He's first in ground ball rate. So not only is he not giving up home runs, but he's also missing bats. And when he does make contact, the ball's on the ground. So this is somebody that has a special arm for Boston. And again, making your debut in Fenway Park is not easy, and the Rays lineup can be a bit challenging. But I like the under here. I think Kluber, like you mentioned, is going to be able to pitch well against Boston, who's been a little bit inconsistent at the plate, have stretches where they're one of the best offenses in baseball, and then other points where they completely fall apart. 9.5 felt too big. I still think 9 feels too big, depending on what number you're looking at. So I like the under in this game in the AL East between Tampa Bay and Boston tonight. But now here's the moment of truth. Where are the people going? Where are you guys? So Bam Bezel, I don't know if the Red Sox will pull it off. I know that Donovan does not think they will, but we'll see whether or not the rest of the community agrees. And sure enough, Donovan they're fading you, man. They like Bello in his debut for the Red Sox at home tonight against their division rival in Tampa Bay. So Red Sox money line minus 122 is the official number from the BetSided community. So Donnavan, you might have to hedge your bet, unfortunately, a little bit as we take the community bet. But most importantly, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us on the program today. Always a lot of fun to be able to dive in, talk our betting plays. Good to be back after a week or so away. I'll be back tomorrow with our guy Peter Dewey at the start of the Las Vegas Summer League. So we'll have continued conversation on that. Make sure you guys are checking out Donovan's work over on BetSided as well, and follow him at DSmooth3D. I am at Benny Heiss. Also a shout out to Joanne Woodcock, our producer and director for today's show. So for Donnavan, for Joanne, I'm Ben. May all of your best bets hit tonight. We'll do it again tomorrow on Daily Betslip, 5 o'clock Eastern. So long, everybody. Be good.